Week 10 here, everybody, for the NFL season. Back here with another episode of the Cherry Pickers. Can't believe it's week 10 already. We're more than halfway through the season now. Teams are rounding out into the teams they're going to be for the rest of the season. A lot of teams already have their bye weeks in. Last week there wasn't one. There was only two teams with a bye. The week before there weren't any. There's a few more this week. The bye weeks are coming to an end here very soon, but we do got some games here, and we do have some picks to share with you. So why don't we jump right into it? Unfortunately, the best pick of the week that the system liked was the Bengals getting 6 points on Thursday night. It saw those teams as much closer than that, and that ticket did cash, but the Bengals could not come away with a win. So that was the best pick of the week. So unfortunately, we were not able to give that to you. It sucks when that happens, when the best pick is on a Thursday. And we're going to have some Saturday games coming up here real soon, too, when the holidays kick in, when college football is done on Saturdays for the most part. The NFL then is allowed to air Saturday games, and they start doing that. So that will be coming. So we're going to miss the Thursday games and the Saturday games that are coming up here soon. But let's get to this week's picks. Carolina and the New York Giants are playing right now in Germany. The Panthers were getting 6.5 points. The system liked that. I think that I was doing a little bit of research. I think the Panthers are still up here, but it looks like the Giants are coming back. So we'll see how that one ends. Let's start things off. Why don't we just start with that Steelers game? This is a big game here for the NFL and especially for the Pittsburgh Steelers as they take on this Washington team that is really playing amazing football right now. I personally keep waiting for this Washington team to fall off of a cliff. They've got a rookie quarterback. They've got a new coaching staff there. New offensive coordinator there, Cliff Kingsbury. They've got young guys all around on that team. Their defense isn't really anything great, but man, they just keep finding ways to win. And they keep finding ways to cover. It's if you're a Washington fan, you've probably been waiting for this forever. Washington hasn't had a real Super Bowl contending team, and I can't remember how long. Kirk Cousins had a couple of good years there. RG3's rookie year was pretty good. And they had, some winning seasons here and there over the last 20, 25 years. But I don't think the excitement has been there for Washington in a very, very long time. A team that's flying high like that and a team that has a bright future, everybody's got eyes on them. Free agents wanted to go there. They did get some, one or two pretty big free agents to come there. Trades to come over to them. So I think this is a team on a rise. They are at home, and believe it or not, they're favored by 2.5 points over Pittsburgh. And that just tells you what the sharp bettors think of this Washington team, what the average Joe thinks of this betting team, what the sports books think of this Washington team. They're a team that has made people a lot of money. This game being at Washington helps for sure, but we don't have enough information, unfortunately, to make a bet. We need 4 games with the same starting quarterback. We don't have that with Russell Wilson yet. But what we've seen from Russell Wilson starting with this team looks to be in even better position to win games than they were with Justin Fields. Fields did a pretty good job, but I think that you can see that the offense has another level to it with Wilson. Obviously, the Steelers defense is still playing great football. And this Washington team's, their offensive line's not anything great. They've got a rookie quarterback. And I saw some stats. Mike Tomlin against rookies, he just seems to own them. Mike Tomlin on the road as a dog, they cover a lot. All signs are pointing here towards a Pittsburgh, kind of just being the better franchise, the better team, the more veteran team, the more veteran coach. All signs pointing to Pittsburgh here. Like I said, we don't have a system pick, but man, if I a gun to my head, I'm taking Pittsburgh plus 2.5. I shouldn't do this, but I usually at a 2.5 spot, I buy a half a point to get it to plus 3. The most common difference in NFL games is a 3-point difference, and that just buys me a little bit more peace in my bet. So that's what I would probably do. Taking Pittsburgh, money line is not a bad bet. You'll get even better odds there. And that would, Pittsburgh coming out of Washington with a win today after a bye last week against a rookie quarterback, with a team that is just playing pretty good football. The defense is playing well. Washington seems to just Jaden Daniels, he makes plays happen with his legs because he buys time in the pocket. We all saw that crazy ending against Chicago where, that team just doesn't quit. That's one thing about this team. They don't quit. They play tough. They played Baltimore tough earlier in the season. They lost to Tampa in week 1. Tampa was fully healthy. That a healthy Tampa team is a tough team. Other than that, they've won, all the games that they're supposed to win. They beat their division rivals. They haven't played Philly yet. I think those are going to be some good games. So it's a 2.5-point spread. Pittsburgh just looks like the better team to me. I don't know how Daniels is going to deal with this defense, with that pass rush. I don't know that he's faced a pass rush like this. I don't think that he's faced a defense that's this good. I don't think he's faced a defensive-minded coaching staff like this yet. I think that this could be a game that gives Jaden Daniels fits. This could be a game where, Pittsburgh doesn't have to hit those big plays. They can sustain long drives here. This Washington defense is susceptible to giving up some yards. They haven't really gave up a ton of points. It's not like they're outscoring teams. It's not like they've had to score 30-something points a game. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Steelers are getting 2.5. They're on the road. I'm personally taking Pittsburgh in that game. That'll do it for that one. Cleveland is on a bye this week, so we don't have anything to discuss there other than last week they looked right back, if you ask me, to the team that they were before Jameis's first start, where they got that win over Baltimore. Not much to say there. Really playing for the future there. Just, a future and a lot of question marks with that franchise right now. It's hard to tell where they're going to go. They've got a coach who's done a good job. They've got a quarterback that they are absolutely handcuffed by. We'll see what happens with those guys. Who knows? They did make some trades there at the trade deadline. They got rid of a couple of guys who were over the age of 30, and I believe their contracts were coming to an end and they weren't going to re-sign. So really, when you look into those trades, they weren't bad trades. Tells me they're kind of packing it in for this season. They know they're not going to win a Super Bowl. The Browns know that they're not a major contender here in the AFC. So they're playing for the future. Can't blame them for that. All right, let's get to some other games here. The Buffalo Bills are heading to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Unfortunately, not enough information here to make a pick in this game. But Indy, I will say the Colts are 7-2 against the spread this season. They play everybody close. They seem to be in every single game. Flacco does not have 4 weeks. He doesn't have 4 starts and finishes to games. So we have to wait to bet that. But, man, this is an enticing game to want to bet on the Colts at home. Buffalo, they're a good team. They can play with anyone. They can beat anyone, but they can get beat up too by physical teams. And this Indy team is a physical team. Their offensive line is a really, really good offensive line, maybe the best in the NFL. I wouldn't be surprised if that game is close or if Indy even pulls out a win there. That Indy lost a close game to Minnesota last week, but, man, they played them tough. That Minnesota team has just got a lot of talent on it, and it's just a team that I don't know. You're going to have a good game when you play them. You're going to have kind of a mistake-free game, and they're going to have to kind of be a little bit out of sorts. They lost to the Rams on the road on a short week on a Thursday night. That's the situation that I would see a team like Indy would need. When I say a team like Indy, they've got a guy that's 40 years old at playing quarterback who's not mobile, who can have really bad games. So that would be the kind of game they would need for Indy to pull that off. But Indy played tough. I believe they covered in that game. Buffalo's been smoking bad teams. They've been They've just been playing good football, but it's still, I can't get a firm grasp on this Buffalo team on whether to trust them or not. I believe they're a 4.5 point favorite today. I didn't write it down because we're not making an official pick, but uh, I would not hesitate to maybe throw this in a teaser, add 6 points to Indy, and maybe make that a pick. So that's one I'm going to be keeping my eye on today. The Vikings, the next game, are in Jacksonville taking on the Jaguars. They're a 7 point favorite. The Jags actually covered last week against Philadelphia. I believe Philly went for 2 after a touchdown to try to go up 7, and they didn't get that. So they ended up winning by 5. But Jacksonville got a defensive score in there, I believe. That's something you cannot prepare for. If not for that defensive score, Philly covers there. Minnesota coming in, just flying high, playing tough football. Uh, you know, they're just a kind of team that's well coached on both sides of the ball. O'Connell, their head coach, is he seems to be like the next young guy that really knows how to coach quarterbacks. And I mean, I was waiting for them to fall off of a cliff too. I was waiting for the quarterback to kind of go back to his New York Jets days. He hasn't done that yet. So I don't know. That's a tough team to kind of get a grasp on. Do you want to trust this team going forward as far as betting on them goes? I don't know that I am, but Jacksonville's, I don't know. I want to say they're a bad team. Their results are bad. Their personnel is not that bad. The play on the field outside of dumb mistakes is not bad. But, man, I would not trust that team or put money on them right now. This could be the time to kind of cash in on. They're getting a touchdown here. They're playing at home. Minnesota's outdoors. Minnesota plays indoors in a very loud environment. Playing at Minnesota is tough because of that. They have an advantage really over their opponents because they have one of the loudest stadiums in the NFL. It's indoors, so they always have perfect conditions there. Playing outside in Jacksonville, who knows? I didn't check the weather. There could be rain. This might be something if you want to dig into to find out if you want to bet. That would be one that, either way, a bet either way, I don't think would be a bad one if you've got enough to back that up. The next one here, and this is one that I really, really think might be undervalued. The New Orleans Saints are at home against the Atlanta Falcons, and the Saints are getting 3.5 points. Saints fired their head coach. Dennis Allen is gone. They hired their special teams coordinator, Darren Reese. Dennis Allen, I never understood the reason they hired that guy in the first place. He's done a pretty good job as a defensive coordinator in his career, but he was also the head coach of the Raiders years ago, and he didn't have a good tenure there with the Raiders. They didn't play well. Here with New Orleans, I mean, they've been around 500 for a couple of years, but this year, I don't know that it was his fault. Their injuries have been crazy. They're probably the most injured team in the NFL, and they've had a ton of just bad luck, a ton of important guys go out. But this is a division game. This is in New Orleans, and they say that there's an interim coach bump. Whenever a head coach is fired and an interim coach comes in, you get a 1-game bump immediately for 1 game. Teams seem for whatever reason to kind of play up a little bit. I don't know if it's excitement. I don't know if maybe they bring in some new things that maybe isn't on tape yet. Who knows what it is? Whether that's true or not, I don't know. That's just the way the talk is around betting circles and around the NFL in general, that those kind of things happen when a new interim coach comes in, that, hey, you've got to pay attention to this guy in the betting market in that first week because they probably got a good chance to cover. They're getting 3.5. Atlanta it's just continues to win games in unimpression that are just not very impressive. I don't know how else to say it. They win games. They're not a very good team. If you ask me, they are not a threat to win the Super Bowl. They are not a threat in the NFC. They're the kind of team that's going to be, like Bill Simmons says, the fake good team. That's my opinion of them. But this New Orleans team, with their injuries, they're not somebody that I would take too serious either. But if I was betting on one of these, I would go with the Saints here at 3.5. You're getting more than 3 points. And even if you wanted to buy it up to 4, 4 is another key number in the NFL. But I just think this one being in New Orleans with a new coach, probably a good spot to bet, probably a good team to bet there with the Saints. The next game here, we got another division game. We got the Denver Broncos heading to Kansas City. Denver's getting 7.5 points. We've seen Kansas City win an overtime game against Tampa. Man, Tampa played a tough game. They really did. They played well. With being without your top 2 receivers, and not only that, but 2 of the best receivers in the NFL. Not 2 top 5 receivers, but 2 of the best. 2 really solid guys, 2 big guys, 2 reliable veteran guys. To be without them and to play Kansas City that tough to an overtime game, you have to feel for Tampa, but Kansas City just continues to get it done. No matter what happens, they find ways to win. They're not even playing that great on offense this season. They don't have a lot of great offensive personnel. This is a defensive team now, this Kansas City team. Chris Jones, Spags, that defense is tough. They are just evolving every year, and they still got Patrick Mahomes. And what makes him the best? Does he have 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns every year? No. Does he have spectacular stats? 8 or 9 out of 10 years, let's say 4 out of 5 years? Absolutely he does. But sometimes his stats aren't great, but they still win. Just like last year, his stats weren't anything crazy. They won the Super Bowl. This year, his stats are not good at all. In fact, he's thrown, I don't know, maybe the second most, top 3 interceptions in the NFL. But he's had some bad luck on those. I've looked into those, and his turnover play ratio to interceptions, turnover-worthy plays is what they call it for Pro Football Focus, where you maybe throw a pass and it bounces off of a defender's hands where it should have been intercepted and it's not, or it is. Or if you throw a perfect pass right into your receiver's hands, it bounces up in the air and somebody picks it off. That's counted as an interception by the NFL. But was that the quarterback's fault? Absolutely not. He's had bad luck there. So he's still getting the job done. They're still getting the job done. They still have a good offensive line. And if you got Patrick Mahomes and, Travis Kelce is still there, he looks old. There's no other way to put it. He is not the best tight end in the NFL anymore. I think that George Kittle now has that title, but or it could be the kid from the Raiders, the Bowers kid. Man, does he look good. But Kelce can still get open. If you watch that game on Monday night, he had a bunch of catches, but his yards after catch are non-existent anymore. He just can't do that anymore. Whether he's out going to too many concerts and too many podcasts and not putting the time in with his body, or if it's just Father Time that has caught up with him, I don't know. But he's still reliable. He still catches the ball when it's thrown to him. He still finds a way to get open. He's just not going to be open for very long, and he's not going to break any tackles, and he's not going to make any big plays after the catch. So this Kansas City team is a 7.5-point favorite against Denver. Denver with Bo Nix, you got a rookie quarterback. You never know what can happen with him. He is the kind of guy that in the right game, Sean Payton can get the most out of him. And this Denver defense is tough. This Denver defense plays really well. Would not be surprised to see a low-scoring game today. I would not be surprised at all. And 7.5 is a lot of points. It's a division game, but again, it's in Kansas City. Kansas City tends to not cover as much as you would think. They tend to be a team to take the points and the opponent in situations that you might not think. In fact, there was a couple years ago, I don't know if they won a Super Bowl or went to the Super Bowl that year, where they covered only like out of 17 games, maybe like 6 or 7 times that they covered, but they either won the Super Bowl or went to the Super Bowl that year. So something to think about there. Denver has a pretty good defense. They've got Knicks. I don't know what game it was, the last game or the game before that. I've been trying to pay attention to them. He's missed some guys wide open. He's got some accuracy issues that Sean Payton is trying to fix, but Sean Payton's using his legs. And, Sean Payton is used to guys like Drew Brees who are super accurate throwing the ball. I don't know if this Bo Nix project is going to work out or not, but they've done a great job. They've got a winning record, and, they're right in the thick of the playoff hunt. So they've got a lot to lose in this game. Kansas City's playing really good, but man, they've won some close games this year that they probably shouldn't have. They beat the Bengals earlier in the year on a fourth down pass interference call that I don't know. You look at the letter of the law and you watch the replay in slow motion. I mean, heck, 60% of all passes thrown probably could have the flag thrown on them. They've just won a lot of close games that if the ball had bounced one other way, they lose. They're going to lose at some point. It could be here. Sometimes that happens. I remember a few years ago, they played a terrible Indianapolis Colts team and lost to them. So getting 7.5 might not be a bad bet. Something to think about. Again, this is a division game, so something to think about. Before we move on to our next game, 1-800-GAMBLER is there if you feel like you need information or resources for a gambling problem. 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, the next game. San Francisco 49ers head to Tampa to take on the Buccaneers. The 49ers were off last week, and man, did that bye come at the right time. There was a lot of guys hurt for San Francisco. And the big news out of this game is the return of the offensive player of the year, Christian McCaffrey, will be back for this game. He is sorely needed for this 49ers offense. 49ers are top 5 in yards, top 5 in points scored, top 5 in EPA. The metrics are all there, but there's something off. Also, their kicker is healthy. I believe he's playing. Last I saw, they weren't sure. But that's a big get back. 49ers literally lost a game against the Cardinals because they didn't have a field goal kickers. They had 2 drives in the red zone. They couldn't kick field goals and had to go for it on fourth downs, and they didn't get them. There were 6 more points. I think they lost by 1 or 2. There was another game where they lost close because they had a backup kicker in, and I think that he missed a field goal that would have been easily made by the starter. Juwan Jennings is supposedly healthy now. Another week for Ricky Pearsall to get acclimated with the offense. Debo, who knows? He's been off and on this season with his health. As a 49ers fan, the guy drives me absolutely insane because he seems to only play half the games. And when I say play, either he's only healthy or he only shows up for half the games. And he's the kind of guy that if he gets something, takes a hard hit, sometimes he'll take himself out of the game, and you'll see him in the second half with his street clothes on. He did it last year a bunch of times. There was a time where he was complaining about his shoulder. He took himself out of the game. It was a huge, big game. They go back, they do x-rays on him. There's absolutely nothing wrong with him. And he started taking some flack. The fans started getting on him, and so did the press. And after that, I don't think he missed another game. He's doing the same thing this year. He seems to be just taking himself out of games or just not playing hard in half of these games. He's going to be the number 1 receiver. He's such a special talent. I understand why Shanahan uses him as much as he does, but the more hits he takes, the more chances that the 49ers take of him coming out of the game. So having McCaffrey back as another outlet there is going to be a huge difference maker. Obviously, Jordan Mason has done a fine job there running the ball. Brock Purdy has done a fine job putting the team on his back. The team is 4-4. Really, 1 or 2 bounces go their way. They're 6-2. And I don't mean lucky bounces. I mean things like your kicker not getting hurt. In this talk about them falling off a cliff and not being tough anymore goes out the window. But I will say there's something off about this offense. So maybe McCaffrey is the thing that gets them back. The defense seems to kind of let leads collapse late. That's been the major criticism of this team this season, is that they're letting teams come back in. They had big lead against the Rams, that they let them come back and win against the Cardinals. And then against Dallas, they did. Dallas didn't come back and win, but Dallas was coming back. But the 49ers were able to hold on for a 10-point win. Tampa, we just talked about them a little bit ago. Without Godwin out there, without Evans out there, they're not the same team. Baker's playing pretty good football. I think he was leading the league in touchdowns, and I think he may still be, or he was last week, in touchdown passes. But it's still Baker. He'll still put the ball in harm's way sometimes. This could be a close game. 49ers are 6.5-point favorites. I think that's too much personally. But without those offensive weapons there, the metrics for Tampa, the numbers that the system spits out, is based on all of the previous 8 games of the season, 8 or 9 games that they've played. And I don't think that's fair to use. We're not using them because Evans and Godwin are such big parts of that team that I think that the numbers are going to be off. You can't take out 2 huge offensive weapons, 2 huge receivers, and just think that the offense is going to perform the same and that the numbers from the previous weeks are reliable. So I would expect a close game. They played Kansas City tough. Now, it could be a letdown spot. They lose in overtime to the Chiefs in a primetime game, a shorter week, but it's at home, so that really is kind of canceled out. San Francisco's coming off of a bye. We'll see what happens. Nothing would surprise me in this game. A 49ers win, a Tampa win, or a close game. None of the three would surprise me. The next game here, we've got the Cardinals at home against the Jets. Jets are a 1.5-point favorite. Man, the betting public still loves New York. Now, the Jets played well in their last game. They got a win, a much-needed win. And Arizona beat Chicago. Arizona's playing good, but I don't know. This Arizona team seems to be a little bit overachieving, and this Jets team is underachieving. That number is probably right. That number is probably right where it needs to be. This is a close one here. Rodgers, I've talked about this all season long. He's probably the most accurate passer that the NFL has ever seen. I'm talking about balls thrown in perfect spots. But perfect spots don't mean that there are spots that receivers are used to. And the way you'll hear some NFL analysts say he throws them in odd spots. You'll hear receivers say it's not where you expect it to be. It's not where you have practiced your whole life for the ball to be, but it is in the best place to be. So every time Rodgers, every year almost, when he's got guys that have left, receivers that have left, he wants to bring back guys he's played with before. When he went to the Jets, he brought in guys that he's played with before. Obviously, they just made a big trade. Devontae Adams is there. Why? Nobody in the world has chemistry with Aaron Rodgers like that guy. Maybe they're starting to figure that out. This Jets team has talent. They have a good defense. They have good offensive linemen. They have a good running back. They've got good receivers. They shouldn't be the record they have should not be. They've got a first ballot, surefire, slam dunk Hall of Fame, one of the best quarterbacks ever. And it pains me to say that as a fan of a team in the NFC who had to deal with that freaking guy for a decade and a half. But they shouldn't be where they are. They should be an AFC player, and right now they're not. So them being a 1.5-point favorite on the road is no surprise. Arizona beat Chicago last week. Chicago didn't play well. From what I'm hearing, there's some internal stuff going on there in Chicago that maybe the general public doesn't know about. That Chicago team is talented. It's got a good defense, but they weren't in that game last week. That'll be a fun game to watch. I think it's a close game. It's going to depend on, can the Jets stop Kyler? Can that defense keep him from making plays with his legs? And is that Jets offense back and clicking on all cylinders? Next game here, we've got the Detroit Lions headed to Houston. The Lions are 3.5-point favorites. The Lions just continue to roll in the betting market. Guys who bet every week, professional bettors, average Joes, guys who bet when they shouldn't, guys who bet when they should. Love the Lions because they cover. Dan Campbell covers. They're 3.5-point favorites against this Houston team. I have a feeling that Houston's going to come out and play their best game of the year. Nico Collins is back. Huge game. Nico Collins rated the number 1 receiver in the NFL this year by Pro Football Focus, who grades every single play from every single player. Him coming back is huge. Detroit being 3.5-point favorites seems about right. You don't want to go at 3 points. If you're a sports book, you want to go at 3.5, because really Detroit is better than what most good teams are in this spot. They're better than a 3. A 3.5 is, I don't know. That makes me want to take Detroit. It does. But Houston getting Nico back and being at home, knowing this is a big game. Detroit being on the road, they've only had one hiccup this year, and that was playing the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers have had some great wins this year. Beat Washington. They beat Detroit. That that's the only game that they've really not played well. They went to Minnesota and beat Minnesota in Minnesota, an undefeated Minnesota team. I don't know that you go against Detroit here in this game. The system likes Detroit -3.5, but Houston getting Nico back. The metrics that we have in the system, the last, I don't know how many weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, Nico Collins has not been in the lineup. So their offensive metrics may be off because he does make a huge difference. He is their downfield threat, and they've had some injuries at the receiver position, but that will be a fun one to watch. The last game here is the Rams and the Dolphins. We don't have enough information from Tua. He has not started and finished 4 games. That one will be close. I don't know. Miami's lost the last couple games by just a couple points. If you're a Dolphins fan, you're probably pretty frustrated. This Rams team is back healthy again. I think with Nacua, with Kupp, with a young defense that's playing well, the Rams are going to be a tough out for anyone. I don't know if they're Super Bowl contenders in the NFC. Maybe they could be. They beat San Francisco earlier in the year at home with about 3 or 4 really big plays that went their way to get that win right as time expired. But we have no pick there. So I'm going with a teaser this week. We haven't done teasers for a while. Remember, what is a teaser? It is when you combine 2 teams into one pick and you add 6 points to whatever team that you like. Now, the odds aren't as good as if you just took whatever points the books were giving you, but you're adding 6. So your odds go way down as far as what you get paid back if you win, but your odds of winning the games together into one bet go up. So my pick this week is the Steelers going from 2.5-point underdogs and getting 6 more to 8.5. So Steelers plus 8.5. And then the Saints, this is a shaky one, but it should help with your odds going from 3.5 to 9.5. So adding those 2 together, Steelers at 8.5 and New Orleans Saints at 9.5. Go shop around on your apps. Try to find the app that will give you the best odds. If they're at like -150, -160, I would probably avoid it. These bets should be -120. That's what they were forever. That's what they were really since I have been betting. And now everybody loves teasers, and these books are giving worse and worse odds because they want you to stay away from the teasers, and they want you to do parlays. Why do you see all these offers for these parlays on these apps? They're like pushing it in your face because parlays are very hard to hit. Parlays are known as sucker bets. If you were to take in the winning percentage of everybody who's bet a parlay, how much they win and how much they've lost, the winning percentage would be laughably low. That's why they don't want you to take a teaser. They do want you to take a parlay because it's a lot harder to hit. I don't bet parlays. I never have. Sure, you can hit it. I'm sure you know somebody who's hit one for big money, and you could make great money doing it. Yeah, you can make great money buying the right lottery ticket too. It doesn't happen very often, and the people who do hit those good ones, you can bet they've lost a whole lot and a whole lot of money they've lost to kind of get there to that point. But with a teaser, you're not going to win. Your odds aren't even going to be 1-to-1. If you bet $100, you're not even going to get $200 back. You're probably going to get more like $170 back. But it's a lot better odds of hitting than it is by just taking the 2 teams in the point spread that the book is giving. So that'll do it for us this week. Can't believe that we're already in to week 10, being that it just seems like the season just got here. I don't know. September and October flew by, and I think we're at the very last. This was the very last European game that we're going to have this season, the last early game, the 9:30 a.m. game. So we're headed here. I mean, Thanksgiving is going to be here in a couple of weeks, and then, like I said earlier on today, we're going to have some December games that'll come on Saturdays. So this season is going by fast. The second half of the season is going to go even faster. So thank you again for everybody tuning in. We're having great numbers. Thanks for all the compliments and for everybody who tunes in and watches. It means a lot. We're having a great time doing this. I'm going to keep coming back as long as I can. And as long as YSN will have me on here. So again, pick for the day, Steelers plus 8.5 and New Orleans plus 9.5 together in a teaser. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. So long.